you're walking home. Maybe it's a Tuesday. Maybe you just stopped at the corner shop. Maybe you came straight from work. Honestly, it doesn't really matter. You're on a street you know by heart, thinking about something that has absolutely nothing to do with birds when you finally notice it. A bird. Just sitting on a low branch, maybe 4 meters ahead. Nothing unusual, right? But then you walk past it, and it flies to the next branch. You walk past that one, and it hops onto a fence post. You stop. It stops. You turn down your street, and it follows. By the time you reach your front door and you're standing there with your keys in your hand, this completely wild animal is sitting right on your gate, looking directly at you. And it doesn't leave. Most people just file that under strange coincidence. Maybe they smile or take a quick photo. Then they go inside and totally forget about it. But here's the thing. That bird didn't just accidentally end up on your gate. It chose you. Deliberately. And it used a system that's way more sophisticated than just a coincidence. The easy explanations, they don't really hold up. It was the following food, but you weren't carrying any. It was confusing. But wild birds don't really do confused. They calculate their routes with incredible precision, avoiding threats and saving energy down to the last calorie. It was just curious. Now, that one is interesting because it's actually close to the truth, just not in the way we usually mean it. Here's what most people don't realize. Birds, especially the ones most likely to follow a human, like crows, robins, or sparrows, are operating inside this continuous behavioral assessment loop. They aren't just reacting to the world. They're modeling it, building predictions, running calculations. And somewhere during that walk you just took, you passed a threshold in one of those calculations. Something about you, specifically, triggered a response. The real question is, what? Here's why this matters, beyond just the strangeness of the moment. Understanding what a bird actually sees when it looks at you, knowing what signals you're broadcasting without even realizing it, changes something fundamental about how you move through the world. It reveals this layer of constant, quiet observation happening all around you. Something most people live their entire lives without ever noticing. And once you understand how the system works, you start seeing it everywhere. You'll notice the way a bird lands right next to one person, but avoids the next. The way some people just seem to attract wildlife without even trying. It makes you realize that the natural world is paying attention to us in ways we've never really paid attention back. If you want to keep going deeper into the hidden intelligence operating around you every day, the things animals know about you that you don't even know about yourself, subscribe. We go here every single week. Now, back to the bird on your gate. Before that bird ever came anywhere near you, it was watching you, and not just for a couple of seconds, way longer than that. Birds in cities and neighborhoods, especially the super smart ones like jackdaws, robins, and house sparrows, run a continuous passive scan on every large animal in their area. That includes you just walking down the street 60 meters away, long before you even realize the bird is there. But what are they actually reading? It's not what you think. It's not your look. It's not your clothes or your size. Research into how birds judge human threat levels shows that what matters most is your behavioral signature, basically the quality and pattern of your movement. How fast you walk, whether your path is a straight line or wandering. The angle of your head. Are you scanning around or are you fixed forward? Even the rhythm of your steps, like if it's even or irregular. They notice if you slow down when you see something small and alive, or if you just stride right past it without changing pace. Think about it. Someone who walks fast, moves unpredictably, and snaps their head toward small animals the way a predator tracks prey, that person registers as a major threat, even on a completely harmless suburban street. But a person who moves at a moderate, steady pace, whose head doesn't snap toward movement, whose footsteps sound like a large non-hunting animal, that person registers as something else entirely. Safe, predictable, non-threatening. And to a bird trying to figure out its next move, that is the very first filter you have to pass. You passed it, and you had absolutely no idea you were even being tested. But here's the thing. Just passing the threat filter isn't enough to make a bird follow you home. Something else happened on that walk. Something specific to you on that exact day that made your signal stand out from the background noise of every other human on that street. And honestly, The answer is almost certainly something you did without even thinking about it. Maybe you glanced at a crack in the pavement where bugs usually gather, and the bird caught that tiny micro-shift in your gaze. Or maybe you paused for a second near a hedge, not because you meant to, but just because you were checking a notification on your phone. But that pause, in that exact spot, lined up perfectly with a little habitat the bird already knew. See, birds learn exactly what behaviors lead to food. And it's not just a simple cause and effect thing. They do it predictively. A robin living in a neighborhood learns over months of watching which humans are the gardeners. They don't do it by looking at their clothes, but by the way those people slow down near the dirt, the way their eyes track the ground, the way they stop at plant borders. Studies on urban crows and their cousins have actually found they can identify individual humans across months and seasons, updating their mental model of you every single time they see you again. What this really means is that your micro-habits, the small habitual ways you move, look, and pause, are constantly being cataloged, and not just by one bird, by multiple birds, in overlapping networks whose collective observations build a picture of you that is way more detailed than any picture you've ever built of them. Not every bird follows people, and honestly, not every person gets followed by the same kind of bird. It's one of those strange, very specific truths about how they act. And it actually tells you a lot about the bird, but it also says something about you. Think about robins. They follow diggers, gardeners, construction workers, basically anyone turning over the soil. It's not necessarily because those people have fed them before. It's just that turned earth means easy access to bugs. Robins have figured out that following the person who disturbs the ground is way more efficient than hunting on their own. So if you're a regular gardener, or you're always crouching down working the earth, robins have already flagged you. They know your type. Now, corvids, your crows, jackdaws, magpies, they're looking for problem solvers. They follow people who drop things, people carrying a bunch of different objects, or anyone who moves around a lot. To a crow, a person sitting outside a cafe handling food packaging is basically a moving resource event. Sparrows and finches, they go for the quiet ones. People who sit still, because stillness is when the seeds fall and the crumbs settle. That's when the microeconomy of a park bench actually pays off. So, the species that chooses to follow you, it isn't random. It tells you exactly what kind of vibe or behavioral frequency you were putting out that day. You fit a profile. The bird was just waiting for someone like you to show up. Now, this is where things shift from just being interesting to being genuinely strategic. Because following you home, that isn't the end goal. It's just the intelligence gathering stage. Birds living in crowded human areas like our streets and parks are constantly updating these internal resource maps. And I don't mean that as a metaphor. Neurologically, the memory centers in birds like crows are built specifically to hold and prioritize geographical data. They can map out an entire territory spanning several city blocks. If a bird follows you home, it's basically mapping your property. It's taking notes on everything. The tree cover, how high the fences are, if the soil is visible, how far you are from the road. It's looking for signs of predators. It's even checking the microclimate of your garden walls and plants. It's trying to decide if your yard is a high-value spot worth adding to its permanent territory. This isn't just a guess, either it's documented. Studies have shown that new spots like bird feeders or compost piles get discovered and visited much faster right after a human movement event. The bird didn't follow you just because you were interesting to look at. It followed you because you were heading toward unknown territory, and that territory needed to be scouted. Your front gate wasn't the end of the trip, it was the start of a survey. And if your garden passed the test that day, that bird is already planning its next visit. But before they make any final decisions about your yard, the bird runs one last test. And this one is probably the strangest part of the whole thing. What looks like a bird just sitting casually on your gate is actually a controlled experiment. And you're the subject. Here's what they're actually measuring. How do you respond when they get close? Do you walk toward them aggressively? Do you just ignore them completely? Do you make noise? Reach out? Or do you just stop and look at them without being threatening? See, the bird is logging exactly how you react to its presence. And that reaction, that's the final data point it needs for its threat assessment of you specifically. Wildlife researchers studying corvids have actually talked about this that call it intentional approach behavior. It's when a bird lands closer and closer to a person. It's not because they want to be your friend. It's because getting close is the ultimate test of danger. You can read someone's body language from 20 meters away, sure. But to really know what a specific human will do at 2 meters, you have to actually get to 2 meters. So that bird sitting on your gate wasn't just hanging out, it was testing you. And whatever you did right then, the way you paused, how you held your keys, whether your shoulders tensed up or relaxed, all of that information went straight into a file that now literally exists inside the brain of a wild animal. It has a record of you now, and that record is going to drive every single decision it makes from here on out about whether your property is actually safe to enter. Just hold all 5 of those pieces in your head for a second. The threat scan that started before you even noticed the bird. The micro-habit that flagged you as a specific behavioral type. The species match that figured out exactly which profile you fit into. The resource mapping of your house as a potential asset. And finally, that boundary test at your gate to lock in the assessment. This whole thing wasn't a coincidence. It wasn't some spiritual sign, and it definitely wasn't the bird just being friendly. It was a multi-stage intelligence operation. And it was carried out by an animal whose brain, gram for gram, is processing human behavior with a level of complexity most people would never expect from something that weighs less than a handful of pocket change. And once you realize that, it fundamentally changes what that bird on your gate actually means. It's not just some random, isolated moment. It's the beginning of something that could literally last for generations. Here is the part that almost no one actually knows. When a bird successfully maps out a new resource when it assesses a human, passes them through all its behavioral filters, surveys the property, and logs the whole place as safe, that information doesn't just die with that one bird. It transfers. Crows and ravens will literally teach their kids specific human identities and property locations. Even robins have these territory handoffs where the next bird inherits more than just a plot of land. They inherit the actual knowledge attached to it. They learn which nearby humans are safe, which ones aren't, and exactly which gates are worth sitting on. The bird that followed you home today wasn't just making a choice for itself. It might have been making a choice that outlives it. So the next time you're standing at your front door with your keys in your hand and there's a bird sitting on your gate just staring at you, just understand that it's already made its decision. The real question is whether you're going to make yours. Has a bird ever followed you or kept coming back to your place? Tell me what species it was and what you were doing when it first started.